When was the last time you laughed at work? Today, we're talking about why laughter might be one of the most serious things we can practice in medicine. If you're a doctor, a healthcare leader, or patient, you belong here. I'm Kim Downey, and this is Stand Up for Doctors Conversations at the intersection of connection, courage, and the future of healthcare. Today, I'd like to welcome Dr. Lee Sharma and Dr. Tomi Mitchell. Thanks for joining us today, Lee and Tomi.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
so
us.
much. Thank you.
You're
Thank
well.
you, Kim.
You're welcome. And Dr. Lee Sharma is an OB-GYN physician, and Dr. Tomi Mitchell is a board certified family physician. And I always like my guests to introduce themselves. So, Tomi, would you like to go first?
Sure, of course. Well, I'm a family physician and I chose family medicine by choice because it's a specialty that I thought I'd be able to be the biggest blessing to my future family and be able to follow my patients longitudinally. So that's something I'm very passionate about mental health and wellness and leadership and health advocacy. And I just want to say, Kim, you are amazing. I've been following you for a number of years. All the advocacy work from starting from gratitude of a late physician, I believe you had, to just seeing you really blossom and being a really amazing champion for physicians and other healthcare professionals. So thank you, Kim.
Well, thank you so much because I do believe you were one of my first LinkedIn connections, and I
Yeah.
just joined. It was like around the spring of 2023, so not even 3 years, and a lot has happened since then. And I appreciate watching all that you've done as well. So thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Lee, what would you like to know us? What would you like us to know about you?
Hello. I just want to echo Tomi's sentiment. I've been watching you, Kim, and I've just been so blessed by the work that you're doing. I was sharing your story with my mom today at lunch. I have lunch with her most days, and she was so moved by what you're doing. I'm a gynecologist in private practice in Auburn. I also am I have a master's degree in conflict resolution, and I work as a mediator and as a consultant to physicians, showing them how to work with conflict and showing them how conflict can be transformative. And it's one of the joys of my life to see people actually learn how to engage professionally in such a way that conflict actually makes everything better.
Well, I love that. And to dovetail into what our conversation is about today, Tomi's LinkedIn tagline includes laughter as medicine. And you each host your own podcast and you each exude genuine positive energy. And you've also each had Michael Hirsch as a guest. All three of us have. So we all know
Yes.
Yes.
we all
Yeah.
know and love Michael.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we're living in challenging times, both inside and outside of medicine. And I'd like you each to share a powerful story, and we'll speak to what laughter in medicine means to you. And later, Lee will share about humor and conflict resolution in medicine. So, Lee, would you like to share a story for us?
Yeah. I was thinking as looking at what Tomi does and her tagline, which really moved me. I was thinking about my dad. My dad was a general surgeon and he started his residency in the late 60s, early 70s. And one of the things that they did was a skit night. And
Hmm.
so they would do a skit night as surgeons and they would actually write songs. And he had those songs on cassette. So I remember as a little kid listening to these songs. Now, at 6, 7, 8, of course, it made no sense to me. They were talking about having to draw their own blood and all the things that, residents at that point had to do. And I was thinking about the fact that those songs meant so much to him as a resident that he kept them and he shared them. And my mom and I both have really fond memories of listening to that. But that was how they supported each other. They were creative, they were humorous. And I have no doubt that he listened to those songs over and over 20 years hence because it meant so much to him emotionally. And how much that got him through was a very challenging process. And it was crazy because I can still sing some of those songs. And so mom was laughing. She's like, "Are you going to sing on the podcast?" I'm like, "Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't want to terrorize anybody." But the fact that I can and I still think about those songs, not only did they emotionally support each other, they emotionally supported another generation of doctors just by using this act of creativity, which was so funny to them. I'm sure they were cackling while they were writing these songs, but that humor not only blessed them, it's blessed me. And I just love the fact that humor was able to do that.
Hmm. Well, that's a beautiful story. And at any point during this recording, if you want to sing a verse or two, you're more than welcome. It's we're open and affirming here. And that just makes me think when I was a senior physical therapy student, we had like a banquet night and we did like skits and would do a roast like for the, professors and everything because you're right, it's hard and draining work. And when you can, release some of that and with humor, that makes all the difference. So thank you for sharing that beautiful story. And Tomi, could you share a story with us?
Oh my goodness, there's so many stories. But one thing I know that laughter is almost like a litmus test. If you go into a place, a workplace, a home where you don't feel after some time of being there, that deep vet belly where the smile reaches your eyes, there's a concern. When I realized I was burnt out years ago, I realized the laughter had stopped, the music stopped. As I said in my TEDx talk, like it just stopped.
Mhm.
And fortunately, fast forward years later, my patients, when I used to be in a group practice, they'll tell me, Dr. Mitchell, I can always tell which patients were seeing you because they came out the room laughing.
Hmm.
And that touched me. And even today in practice, a patient came in, the staff was like, yeah, they're a little stressed. Some bad things happened in their life. And I hadn't seen them in a few years. And I walked in there and you acknowledge the humanity, the pain that they were feeling, connect with them, but still find the silver lining. And that is joy. Joy is not denial. It's not negative, like this toxic positivity. It's like what are we gonna do? There's time for tears. And sometimes we cry up, but we also have this laughter, this renewal, this hope. There's another breath. So I didn't really pick a story, but it's like this thing that follows me. If there's not joy, if there's not full emotions in a place where there's freedom, there's something wrong. And patients genuinely appreciate that smile, that safe touch, that like we hear you. And where there's appropriate, laughter is important, but again, it comes from it's natural. It's not something that you just plan. It's not like a stand up. It just comes from the heart, and that is so important as healers. I believe these hands should be healers, right? As physicians, that joy, and it's from inside out, and you can't fake it because we can tell when someone is just like ha ha ha. It's like okay, whatever. It's a cheesy joke, but genuine joy.
You're right, and that's so true, and I love that so much because I've seen 43 doctors with my three cancers, five surgeries, if you count all the radiologists and anesthesiologists. I'm going to meet doctor number 44 tomorrow. But through all of that, it's exactly what you're saying. And one doctor that comes to mind is my medical oncologist, and he sees people with cancer every day, but he always wears fun socks, right? So
Yeah.
whenever you go to see him, it's like you're always wondering what are his socks, going to look like today, and that he is so funny, and he just comes up with and we talk about serious things. I mean, I had cancer, with him twice, right? It was the third one. I wasn't seeing him for that. But you're talking about serious things, but you still can laugh and have joy. And as far as your hands being healing hands, I would say that the relationship I've built with my doctors is as important as anything that they've ordered for me. Any
Yes.
medication, any test, any procedure. So like I fully believe that in the depth of my being. So thank you for sharing that. And if you wanted to share a bit about your TED Talk and then conversely laughter and medicine, since your TED Talk is about burnout.
Yeah. So when you know stuff hit the fan, you know what I mean? I remember I walked into an exam room, closed the door of my then previous office, and I literally hit my head against the table. I was like, how can somebody this bright with so many talents be living like this? Like when you're exhausted, where you don't want to hear your name one more time, and you feel like you're gonna snap. Where you have no more to give. Like you're done. And I at that point, I realized I was done. The laughter was gone. The music was gone. The dance was gone. In my TEDx, I talk about music and laughter and joy, and where when life throws you lemons, what do you do? Everyone says make lemonade. I say make cocktails or mocktails, 'cause I don't really drink, but make a cocktail, right? Like go over and above, right? Make something beautiful out of it. So again, laughter is important. Sometimes we get too serious in the work we do because the weight of moral injury, that's just the politics, the crap, and everything that's been thrown at us that our sometimes feeling like puppets because people without licenses control our medical decisions, like sometimes. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that patient-physician relationship, I believe, is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my white coat ceremony decades ago now, 2 decades ago. Um, I remember taking that oath, right, and meaning it with from the bottom of my heart, though not really knowing the full extent of it, but still meaning it. But also, as you know, you have the privilege of seeing whether it's cancer patients and new babies being born to the world, watching people transition to the next life. Like it just shapes one, and medicine is supposed to mold one and grow one, and we just have to know that laughter is like this. It's a daily medicine we all need. It's like a shield. It helps support us as we walk through a valley of often a shadow of like darkness and just terrible situations. But we hold our head high because we are thy healer. Physicians, we need to be the healers. Health professionals, we need to be the healers. We need to be light. And we need to hold on to what we know. Our craft, right, is important. And we can't minimize it. We shouldn't feel bad for who we are and the work we do. It's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So, laughter is important. And if for those who are listening who like, okay, this is corny, well, maybe you should just go to a room and laugh. Watch a good movie and laugh. Learn how to laugh. Get that big kid excitement that so many of us lost along the way. Maybe it was during when you were studying for MCAT. So maybe it was USMLEs or whatever board exam. You lost it along the way, whether it was a divorce or whether it was sickness. Try find it. It doesn't mean that life is perfect, but it means that you have breath and it means that you get to impact joy, this dose of this contagious like presence
Mm-hmm.
and shine light in sometimes a dark world. So there you go. My TEDx on redefining burnout, where I talk about burnout is not just a work situation, it's a relationship challenge with three critical relationships we all have: self, significant other, and work and society. Imagine it like a stool with three legs. You need all three stools to be strong to support the weight of our life. When one leg is weak or broken, what happens? The stool falls, aka burnout thrives. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Burnout is more than work. We're all a relationship being, and that's why laughter connects us. And laughter is universal, like smiling. Smile is a smile across the world, as far as I know, unless it's an
Mm-hmm.
island somewhere that's smiling is angry. I don't know. But
Yeah.
last time I checked, and where I've traveled in the world, smile is joy. That really meets the eye. Yeah.
I love all of that. So thank you for sharing. And Lee, if you'd like to add anything to what Tommy said, and then move on to what we said that you'd also like to share about humor and conflict resolution in medicine.
Yeah. Tomi, I just want to like reach through the screen and hug you right now.
Oh, thank you.
I love how you talk about, the areas in our lives that all contribute to that burnout and they all need our love and attention. And I love how you talk about that. And one of the things that you said that really struck me that I want to expound on is that when there's humor, when there's laughter, where that comes from is important because it's not
Mhm.
something that we can generate necessarily. It's not
Yeah.
something like you said, like it's not a stand-up routine.
Yes.
My husband's pulmonary critical care, and all of you get this is that, he's constantly, unfortunately, some people, they have lung cancer. He is, working in the intensive care unit. When people walk up into the grocery store and they say, thank you for taking care of my father, mother, sibling, he has to ask them, are they still alive? And because he doesn't know. But one of the things this man says to me every morning before I leave the house, and he's done this for decades, is goodbye, honey. I love you. Don't forget to laugh. And he has said this to me every day for as long as I can remember. And I remember, early in my practice career, I mean, I was way too serious. It was before I had done my master's. I was not a happy human. And when he would say that to me, I'm like, how can you say that? How do you expect me to laugh? I'm going to go see 40 patients in clinic today. How do you expect me to do that? And it took me decades to understand that where that laughter came from in him was authentic.
Yeah.
That is who he is. And when we become more in touch with who we are authentically, not just as clinicians, as humans, when we understand where our emotions are truly coming from, when we're in touch with those emotions, laughter becomes very easy to find.
Yeah.
because we look at life in a very different way. Like you said, Tomi, we find joy in amazing places,
Yeah.
not just because everything's roses and bubblegum, because we see the beauty in transition. We
Yeah.
see the beauty in endings and beginnings, and we get to be present for that. What an honor. What
Yes.
an honor as clinicians, as people, that we get to be present for that. And it makes those moments that you can laugh and hug with people, that you
Yes.
can, like you said, Tomi, that you actually see it go to their
Yes.
eyes smile,
Mhm.
and you've connected in that way. That's something beautiful and precious. And that is where that authentic space of laughter becomes something that creates community. And it's to be celebrated.
Hmm.
Yes.
That's beautiful. And one thing I wanted to add is we did quickly mention toxic positivity. So,
Yeah.
Tomi, what supports your positivity without slipping into toxic positivity?
Oh yeah. What's the I ex acknowledge the facet of emotions human we have as humans. Sadness, frustration, all that stuff. So I'm not just like d in Delulu land, I'm in denial that, oh, this is just so great, this is that, and not look at the big picture. I take a holistic, balanced approach. However, I
Mm.
choose to focus on the hope piece, right? That there's still tomorrow and that we can still, and this right now, there's actually still today. We know now. We don't know tomorrow, but we know now, right? And I'm thankful for that. But I still have that childlike excitement, curiosity who could think, okay, it could be better. I'm hoping for a better tomorrow, even though right now it's really painful. I really don't like this. So it's not so I'm very realistic, and that's how I am with my patients. We hope for the best, prepare for the worst, but let's make the best use of it. And what can we do to make tomorrow better, even if whether we're here or not here? What do we need to do? How can we really shine light into other people? Because it's like a seed that you get to pass on. It's like a domino effect that you may not see the dominoes all fall, but you get to start it. And that's legacy, seeing the bigger picture that is more than just us, right? We're here for more than just our own life. We're here to just do amazing things. So that's how I don't do toxic positivity. I'm allergic to it. Like, give me an
Yeah.
EpiPen. Like, no.
Well, absolutely. And Lee, feel free to add something to that and then mention comedy and education because we had briefly talked about you and I, Glaucom Flecken. And I
Yeah.
think that is really something interesting.
Oh, absolutely. So, Tomi, unlike you, I think toxic positivity was something I did struggle with very early on. And I think a big part of that for me was, um, even sometimes with my kids, unfortunately, when they were smaller, I think something would happen to them. I was like, oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's all going to be okay. It's going to be fine. And what I realized when I was doing that, and I will definitely contribute a lot of the skill set to going through the masters and working in conflict, was if you're not actively listening to somebody, you do kind of default to that toxic positivity word base, if you will.
Yeah.
But when you are actively listening to someone, when you are in a space where you are really hearing what they're saying, that positivity and that construction in that space is no longer toxic. It's real.
Yeah.
And it gets you out of, you don't have to have toxic positivity when you actually sit with somebody and actually hear what they're saying. Because
Yeah.
when you hear them, you are able to be, like you said, Tomi, how can I help share hope with you?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm really listening to what you're saying, then I am going to be able to do that. But if I'm just sort of la 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 la, I'm going to default to toxic positivity. So I think what's really helped me not be that person is developing those skills of active listening. And it does take emotional time and attention to do it, but it's so worth it when you can be that with somebody.
Yeah, well said. And then thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And Tomi, so what does reclaiming joy in medicine require?
Oh, okay. Knowing where you have autonomy and power, you're not necessarily chained to the desk where you work, okay, or the hours, the extra activities you take on, or the conversations you have with people. So realizing, okay, what do I have control over now, or maybe in the future, and how can I respond differently? How can I shape the relationships I have in this situation so that I feel more supportive, it's more elevated, you know? But honestly, you have one of the lines of my TEDx was, sometimes the greatest act of self-care is knowing when to let go.
Mhm.
And sometimes as physicians, because we're so like usually type A, I'm not anymore. I'm kind of very laid back, you know.
Mhm.
But I'm also some way very type A, to be honest. I'm a high achiever. Constantly educating myself like you. I'm in a master's program as well. So I'm like, yep, I hear you. But just like, no, you have a choice. Yeah, there's an opportunity cost you got to think of. You got there's pros and cons, but at the end of the day, you have a choice.
Mhm. Right. And you
So
always do
choose
have more,
wisely.
yeah, you always do have more power than you think you do, right?
Yeah, people, you really do. And it starts with your mindset. It starts with what's going on here. I could be in the same room as someone else and have a different experience because I choose
Mhm.
to filter what I don't need to filter. I see people for who they are, not for who I want them to be. And I just, you just start harnessing emotional intelligence, negotiation skills, dealing with conflict resolution, um, critical conversations, another training that's really good out there. Like there's so much stuff to learn, and you almost become like Teflon when you need to. Obviously, for
Mhm.
short amount of time, we're not meant to be in chronic stress, but you can
Mhm.
get through the burning whatever and be like, okay, that sucked. Take a breath
Mhm.
and go somewhere and hang out with friends and laugh or just whatever it is, right? So that's how I get through things. But again, you have a choice. You do have more choice than you realize.
Yes, I do love that. You always have a choice. So, Lee, if there's anything you'd like to add, and then also speak to studies about humor in hospitals as a way of bonding and relating.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to add just quickly to what Tomi said. The fact that you have a choice. I think you also have a choice to every day do one thing to try to make the house of medicine better. When you were talking about legacy, that's really my headspace that I've been in for a little bit now. Of, when I retire and I'm no longer practicing medicine, if whatever it is I'm doing, I want to leave this whole arena better than when I started. And if that's helping to a colleague start a practice, if that's learning about legislation and writing my congressman, if it's
Yeah.
doing the podcast, if it's speaking, if it's reaching out to a physician that's struggling and asking more than how are you, it's what
Yes.
color is your heart today? I love that question because, you asked me, how are you? I'm fine. That's not connecting. But if I ask you what color your heart is, you have to think about that before you give me an answer. And I'm going to be more able to help connect with you in that way. So I think that's such a powerful thing that you're doing, Tomi, that you're doing a master's. This is how what you're doing, Kim. This is how we make the whole area, the whole house of medicine better. So I love it that we're doing that. You got me thinking, Tomi, when we were talking about doing this podcast about laughter and conflict resolution. And I was thinking about times that I've been in situations where, for whatever reason, somebody said something funny, somebody said something just being, maybe even snarky sometimes, but the room would break up. And laughter and conflict really does reduce physical tension. We feel conflict. And
Mhm.
so when we start laughing, it's really hard to hang on to that visceral feeling we have when we get in that situation. You have to let it go. So I love laughter as a way to sort of get people to drop their guard just a little bit. I think that helps people interact. There are lots of studies that talk about when nurses are doing changeovers, like they're doing shift change, that if in that room there's inside jokes going, if there's
Mhm.
people making fun of people as like, yeah, I see what you did there, that it's really hard to maintain conflict states when people have that kind of inside joke relationship.
Yes.
I also do think people like Dr. Glockenflecken, they're telling hard truths when they're talking about third party payers, when they're talking about the struggles that physicians are going through with being able to see their patients.
Yeah.
But he's wrapping that truth in a feather. It's soft. And the way it lands when it's wrapped in a feather, people can receive it. Sometimes if you just speak the truth, and we all know that it's truth, I mean, nobody denies it, but sometimes just to speak it's a sledgehammer. And that sledge sometimes doesn't always get the effect that we want it to have. And that's why I love when people can speak truth and humor, because it really lands in a way that people can be more receptive to it. And also, then something you said earlier in the podcast, Tommy, I want to come back to because I thought it was really cool. And I think it's very, very, very relevant, is that there's a time and a place to use humor in
Mhm.
conflict resolution. I was in a room once with a patient he was terminal. He had ALL and he was going to die. And one of the specialists had come in to see him and walked in the room and was like, "Let's party." And I
Mhm.
thought his wife was going to get up and punch this
Yeah.
doctor. I
Yeah.
legitimately felt that. And it was one of those things. It's like, was that your defense mechanism? Were you so worried about going in this room that that's what you defaulted to? Because I wanted to
Mm.
pull him to the side. It's like, I want to stop with you for a second. What were your emotions? Why you felt like you had to do that? So there is a time to
Yeah.
use humor, and you
Yes.
have to be able to read the room to know when that is the time.
Exactly.
But the biggest thing I have found successful watching people in conflict, and I definitely have tried to do this myself, and I feel like as like I've gotten older and my husband's words have landed on me that I got to laugh every day, is the self-deprecating humor.
Mm.
When I can laugh about myself, when I can take not take myself so seriously, I find such joy in that. I'm not, I mean, I'm me, I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes, I'm going to do silly things. And if I'm able to laugh about it with my patients and with my colleagues, I'm able to own my humanity. And
Yeah.
that goes a long way in building bridges with people.
100%. And that also goes with building psychological safety. The fact that you as a healthcare leader
Mhm.
can acknowledge, your imperfections and that goes a long way. That lets others who are a little bit more stiff to like, oh, okay, they're human too. Oh, I did that too. Maybe I'm not so bad. But
Mm-hmm.
there's there's a responsible way of dealing with that. So that's beautiful. And we want more of that because honestly, when you feel safe psychologically, where you can give feedback, good, bad, and not so great, and
Mm-hmm.
still laugh at the end of the day, and still be the relationships are not fractured. If anything, they feel tighter and closer, which is the ideal. It should be bringing you together. That's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Well, I love that in this day and age that we still can, and maybe it's more important than ever to talk about laughter in medicine. So
Oh
thank
yeah.
you for having this conversation with me, and I would like for you each to share a take-home action message for our audience. Tomi, would you like to go first?
Wow, great question. Well, honestly, when last have you laughed? That's my question. So I want you to laugh. I want you to practice laughter. Okay? Many of us are so serious, whether you have to watch a movie to get there, whether you go play with grandkids or kids, just I want that to be part of your day. And it may just start with just smiling. Some people have lost that ability to smile. They're so serious. It's
Hmm.
important. Laughter is good for the soul.
I love it. Lee?
Tomi, I love that's your advice. And I would not only echo and encourage people to take your advice and learn to laugh every day, I would actually tell go hug somebody, go
Yeah.
laugh with them, go
Yeah.
actually share a laugh with somebody. If you don't have somebody that you can, when you said earlier, you can tell what's going on in a building by what laughter is going on in the
Oh
walls.
yeah.
Build some inside jokes with the people you work with. We have so many in my office, just goofy things that we laugh about on the daily, but it creates a beautiful environment. So I'm going to second that, Tomi.
Thank you, Lee.
Well, this is great. So, if today's conversation resonated with you, you'll find more stories like this in our White Coat book series. So, just this month, we released White Coat's Human Hearts, and Dr. Stephen Pierce speaks to reclaiming awe, which I feel like is related to joy and laughter. And then
Yeah.
Dr. Simon Craig speaks to feeling a sense of belonging when it's a story related to like curry puffs and chocolate cake. So with laughter and joy. So those stories are in our book. And then for those who feel called to go deeper, we'll be gathering this October at our inaugural physicians retreat, and would be honored to have you join us. And our opening night, two doctors are going to lead us in improv for doctors. So there will be plenty of
Oh,
laughter and joy there. And links are in the show notes, including how to reach out to both of our guests this evening. And if you'd like to support this work through sponsorship, I'd love to connect. So, in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients, patients need to care about doctors too. So, stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.